Yeah, hi everyone. Myself Sai Kiran. I have around 7 years of experience in Azure Dev Apps and with the multi-cloud environment, working with the .NET and kind of different technologies where I have been into a different arcs. And now we are here to just gather and have a knowledge sharing between all of us to just get it how we can get started and what we are going to do and how why we need this course and what this going to be do in our demo. This is going to be our first class. I think we'll get interact each other slowly in a way, day by day. We'll get to know more things about us. Singapore, like you'll get to know about more of me, and I'll get to know about more of you. And let's get started in. Yeah, firstly, why we are here. We are like a different stream of people here we have in. One is like who is going to enhance their career with the like latest cloud trending technology in. And one more thing is like everyone like the day everyone gets started and realize that the things are going into moving faster into the Azure and the cloud environment, that where their career can get enhanced with the whatever the kind of work they are doing. Like I mean to say the developer role they might be having like application. I mean to say with the technology of Java or .NET or Python or anything is fine. While they are doing up their things in, at the end they would be depending onto the someone who can help them like building up their continuous integration and continuous deployment and continuous delivery as well as continuous testing to get ensured to just like scalability of application and the things along with their side of career. So this is going to be a kind of like where we are gathered here to get interaction between the one cloud provider and the DevOps. The DevOps is going to be more of like what we would be doing up are the manual steps. We would be gathering into a different types of tools and technologies together to make it like continuous integration as well as continuous deployment, like a complete agility or scrum process. Theoretically, can what can be done on the broader level, we will be doing the same here. Like let's get started. Like there are n number of tools we have, like that we'll get one by one into like while we are interacting with each other in the complete course. What we would be covering is like we would be covering the major or like one of the cloud provider Azure, and the next one is like one of the from the Microsoft called Azure Dev Apps, where we would be doing up the CICD pipelines and work gathering and team maintenance activity, team building activity, and scrums and boards and the kind of stuff what we would be doing in that, what we would be going to cover in the complete course. And along with these, we would be involved into a number of technologies and tools and scripting or a kind of thing. That I mean to say, we would be using up the tools of PowerShell, Shell Script, and AGCLI, Azure PowerShell, ARM templates, Azure Biceps, and we would be using up like the Terraform, TerraGrunt, TerraScan. Like one more thing is like a Sonar Cube and Sonar Cloud, Sync, Snick, and Benchmark, TFSec. These are going to be a different types of tools we would be using to get our automation done. And along with the like the cloud provider as well as like the PaaS service given by the Microsoft with the Azure DevOps are like Jenkins, our GitHub Actions, our GitHub collaboration, and GitHub commits. We would be going into the complete process of from end to end, like how it going to starts the journey of the application and where it's seeded into, like how the discussion is going to get started between the developers at the core level of technical architect to the business analyst, and how the process is going to get into the arc, and then it's going to come into the initial stage. It's going to get it deployed into the different types of environments, development environment, how it is we would be integrating, and what are the kind of tools and the benchmark standards for code quality and buggy and sneakiness of the code and vulnerability management we would be covering. And the next step is like, as we would be talking more of into the Azure, like why we would be going into the Azure and why we need the Azure cloud. Irrespective, we have a number of public providers we do have in the market. Why we would like to go in, and what's the requirement from on-premises to the Azure? Why we have to go in? That's the another thing. And how this journey like of the Azure DevOps migration helps us the organization to achieve the goal, and that can help us to sort it out to get career started in our career like enhancement what we would be going into the current arc, it would help us. And that recently the buzzword what we hear is like Docker and containerization, how it's together and as compared to the like normal hypervisor or virtualizer, how it is different and why we need that. And then how we would be achieving like whatever the migration strategies we would be using in that, how we would be achieving. That is the overall like a core concept theory of our complete content course what we would be and undergoing with this complete course. While we end up with this course, we would be having like whatever the things I have specified, we would be having in our mind to just get started into the work directly into that. And along with the Azure Active Directory, that where it helps us to managing the RBAC and IAM kind of roles. Along with that, different types of Azure services that would be using into the and like a different departments or different sectors of the organizations. I mean to say HIPAA or NIST or CISO or SOC. There are n number of benchmarks it associated to different types of arcs. And as we know that this is going to be Azure is going to be a public cloud provider. How we can customize to use within the our internal like I mean to say the arc level, what are the different types of landing zones we have and hub and spoke model we do have in even we have secure hub approach we do have. There are n number of things we would be covering into this. Like don't get confused, just for information I'm sharing you on the like this class. We would be day by day we would be getting one by one to just get more deeper knowledge of it. And along with that, networking, that is going to be the hardcore piece of like any cloud provider we would be using up. That where we have get started and how we would be doing up the segmentation and what are the different types of PaaS providers, as providers, SaaS providers we have in, why we have to go with that approach, if we go with what, which resource, what would impacting us. Yeah, this is all about our course. Let's get it started into our demo now. Yeah, what is on-premises? The next question is like, what is on-premises and why we need on-premises? As you know well, like on-premises is like nothing but the space where it's going to be located our servers and our applications and our power banks and everything what we would be buying up into the like. There are two things while it comes to the on-premises, that where we it like a cloud provider help us. Like there are two components in the like on-premises computing. What it requires is like capital expenditure and operational expenditure. Capital expenditure is nothing but the cost or amount how much you are spending to build a data center. Or like a data center is nothing but a room where it's going to have like a hardware space and associated OS and software licensing what it has in. That is going to be what we call it as on-premises. This is going to be on-premises with the like a number of point-to-point connectivities. It's based on the application availability and scalability, and depending upon the organization level, it's going to be like a number of geo-region availability that we would be taking consideration. And this while we take the on-premises, the capital expenditure you have to spend at the initial day one. I mean to say that there no one will give you anything for free, right? Free of cost. You have to spend like amount to get the hardware. You have to like pay advances for space where you would be keeping up your data center in, and you have to pay for electricity and you have to pay for AC bills and whatever the staff it needs, and the license you would be taking up advances and reservations you would be need to pay in. And the next thing is like while it will take the on-premises, what the major drawback we would be facing is like it's our responsibility to maintain everything. Like if something goes bad, like I mean to say it's everything is your responsibility. I mean to say if something fails, it's going to get your application crashed completely. And as the vast application requirements coming into the picture, it's going to be the high availability, zero redundancy and low latency we needed. That's the purpose where these cloud providers are taking. Our future is going to be into the cloud providers. That's where it's. And the later of what you see in the like the screen, the another complex part is like the responsibility. This responsibility is nothing but you are the key, or like the organization is responsible for complete the stuff like the breakage or like downtime or anything, it's going to be responsibility of the organizations. So what the like modern way of organization doing up is like they don't want to go with the operation capital expenditure, and they want to go with the operational expenditure when they want to go with the whatever the resource they want. Like for a time being they would be creating it, and they would be when they don't want to use it, then they would be like a deleting up and removing up, then they would be completely descaling and decentralizing and destroying the whatever the architecture and infra they have created, that they don't want to use in future. That is where it's going to be like a provision like given on the opportunity of the different types of cloud providers. As you know well, AWS, Azure, GCP and Alibaba and IPM, Oracle, we have a number of cloud providers. Why we need Azure? As compared, as we have a number of cloud providers, the one of the latest leading and leading cloud provider is Azure. Why it is leading provider in the market now? There are two regions major like mainly it's going to be more popular in nowadays. One is it's going to be less costly as compared to the AWS, and the thing is another thing is like it has more services offered as compared to the other cloud providers. And one more thing is like it has like a more number of global data centers. I mean to say region and geo regions are available into the Azure as compared to the remaining providers. I mean to say if you want to go with the Indian origin or Asian origin or West like a Canadian origin, like wherever EME origin, they have their data centers where you can go with the like a Jones and John redundancy, as well as whatever it needs regional redundancy you can able to provision in. One like in general how the application architecture is like, why it's going to be complicated in on premises for coming our requirements. 1 minute please, I'll be back. This is how it looks in general, like many of the applications what we see, whatever the language it has developed or whatever the framework or technology it is using up, it has like one you would be using up user, that where we call it as a browser, and it requires something that it goes to the web application or front end or UI, what we call it as, that is going to web layer where its request initially gets in, and then it's going to go with the business layer to just get the business logic calculations done. And then the next thing is like database where it gets and fetches or saves the data in latest technology. If you take the example as Amazon or Flipkart or any trending or any shopping cart applications or any like any kind of applications, it's going to get in. The thing is like while you take the example of as Amazon, when it comes to the sale days, that time it's going to be the utilization is going to be more. If you use the existing on-premises architecture, like as you know that this sale is coming on the January, maybe think it in this way, then it's going to then it needs like in 100 servers that day, and the rest another day it really don't need. I mean to say 2 3 days the sale will be on live, right? That time it's going to be more requests and more responses. That time we have to scale our web application as well as business layer and the database, and it's going to be a region specific, the geo regions. If you see here, the one client is accessing this application, here a number of clients are accessing this application. It means that it needs to be served the more load, and even though it needs to be supplied with the low latency, otherwise no one will come to our app saying like if it takes if you click on one of the like maybe mobile, then it takes like 5 minutes to load, you won't be coming again to check for mobile to or buy. That time these on-premises, while we are using the on-premises, we would be having like a capital expenditure issue saying up that day you need, that means you have to buy at the earlier, that means you have to spend amount earlier. While you are not using up, then you would be deprovisioning it and you would be keeping with you. Even though you are not utilizing, you have to pay whatever the cost it occurs, right? That's the one of the like a drawback with the on-premises. It's not drawback, there are like different ways we would be using in that way, where these cloud providers help the organization to scale their applications with in a seconds, and it won't occur the cost until like when you need, you would be paying for it. This is all about it. Then what is cloud? We are talking more from being starting. I think someone has unmuted. Can you mute? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, what is cloud and why we need? Is echo is coming from me or someone has unmuted? Hello, do you hear me? Okay, can someone
Yes,
answer
sir.
my question?
Yes,
Yes, we
sir.
can
Yeah,
hear
yeah,
you.
You're clearly audible. Yeah. But
yeah,
some
yeah,
echo
go
is
on.
still there. I think someone Sheikh is unmuted, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, someone needs to be muted. Yeah, that is fine. Yeah, like what is cloud computing? Like we are speaking a lot and tons of information being like last 10 minutes. But what is cloud and why we need this? Why, what is cloud in general? What it locates?
Sorry?
The general thing, nothing is but the cloud is nothing but it's an on-premises data center. Like it's similar to the on-premises data center, but what it's going to do is like it's going to be like everything is equipped by one of the provider, and they would be maintaining it, and they would be having like the similar data center they have in. And what they would be doing is like when you need, they will supply. I mean to say, this is a kind of requirement. Let's take example as this way. Uh, let's take example as a restaurant. This restaurant is going to have like there are n number of menu, and then n number of in their menu there are n number of items, right? When you would be want to go and buy a, like a biryani, you would be going and you would be buying, right? That time they would be serving. Like you are not going to pay monthly for that particular restaurant to get the biryani, right? The same way what this is doing is like public providers as building their like one data centers with the global availability, edge servers are available. And what they were saying is like why you have to waste your time and efforts to get built your data center, as it's have like security capabilities and everything can be having. You just go and use our services and pay how you are using up. So it gives you a chance to innovate and spend more time on your application irrespective of the data center or infrastructure where you would be having like n number of times having like a capabilities or issues you would be encountering. That is the one of the major advantage they would be providing. There are n number of providers that, as I said, AWS and GCP, Alibaba, and IBM, Oracle, Azure. Then what is this the cloud provider and how they offers? Basically they offers subscription basis, they offers monthly basis, they offers like with the reservation basis. And how they offer and what are the kind of services they would offer in general. Any cloud provider in general offers, there are three types of services they would be offering. One is software as a service, the next one is platform as a service, and the infrastructure as a service. When we need what kind of service we would be using up, what they would be doing is like, let's take whatever the diagram you are seeing here. This is going to be a data center with the high speed network they have connected. I mean to say, in India we have like in Kolkata we have, and we in south we have in Chennai. There are two data centers we have in for currently in India. Like if you take, like they would be building all these kind of applications and frameworks, OS services, firewalls, and operating system, network, and virtualized instances and hardware with equipped with the high speed of internet. Then you would be saying up like how you, whatever the kind of service you need, you would be going in. The first kind of service is like software as a service. This mean to say that if you just like buy it, they, you don't need to worry about the application, or you don't need to worry about the maintenance, or you don't need to worry about the availability. That time what we call it as like software as a service. I mean to say, like there are a number of SaaS products we were using in general in our life, saying up Gmail or Outlook or Teams or like SMTP protocols, whatever you have in, that is going to be a covers as a SaaS provider. Just you buy it, they will offer everything. You don't need to worry about anything. I mean to say availability or scalability or like upgrades or anything. So if something goes, then you can directly go to the provider saying up, they would be taking care. The next service is like a PaaS, platform as a service. What they are doing is like, why while you are building up this, you would be efforting like you would be having like more efforts to build an application. Irrespective, they are saying up the go for the PaaS providers. Like what is this PaaS provider? They will maintain everything. If you see here, this arrow indicator is saying up, they if you go with the SaaS, they would be managing everything. If you go with the PaaS, they would be managing everything except the application. It's up to you what kind of application you want, or how you want to innovate yourself, your application, I mean to say. And just go ahead and do whatever the things you want, just get it deployed. You don't need to worry about anything availability. Then they will do everything on behalf of you, and your application will be served quickly into the customers. This, if you take the example as these PaaS services, web apps, storage accounts, and there are web apps and SQL PaaS service, we have SQL managed instances, we have, and we have cognitive services, we have like a big data services, Synapse or Azure Data Factory. There are a number of services we do have in. The last and foremost important, most of the organizations use like infrastructure as a service. You mean to say that you want to take care of your security, and you want to build, and you want to manage, or you want to have like a complete control over the application, complete control over the what you would be building up. Then you would be going with the IaaS provider. In general, you can take it as a computer storage in general most of the times. Then what they would be giving is like, they would be giving like virtualized instance and hardware. Then it's up to you to choose what kind of operating system and what kind of version you want to go, and what kind of frameworks you want to install, I mean to say .NET or Java or Python or PySpark or whatever you want, big data. Then go ahead, or go whatever you want, you can install on the server. And whatever the application, or how you want to configure your application, just configure for your application and run it on your behalf. This way, they have like SLAs. They would be giving like a platform level SLAs. You are the responsible for the application level SLAs. This is all about the stack, how it's going to be, any cloud provider should be offering in. Yeah, in general, what we talked, like infrastructure as a service, it comes into the compute, where it's going to be virtual machine and containers, storage, and the networking. There are a number of components in the network that we would be doing. In general, we would be using in. The next is like the PaaS providers. If you see compute, they would be having like cloud services, and having web, mobile, and developer services. Along with that, we have security and management tools, that where you see here Active Directory, Key Vault, and the kind of stuff. These all of PaaS providers. And hybrid operations, this is going to be more of monitoring and managing of your Active Directory, syncing between the on-premises to the Azure, and like doing up the backups and recovery, and doing of Azure migrate with the site recovery, or like Azure migrate, doing of like using of a number of this integration services, or analytics, or IoT, or cognitive services, or data services, that it your our application needs in. That is all about this. If you see, and in general, like we are done with the Azure. Like let's get into Azure Dev Apps now. In general, what I have took an example. Basically, in general, what happens is like, before the term called Azure Dev Apps, DevOps and with the Azure, I meant to say. Before, what they used to do is like, I am the developer A, and you guys are going to be a 23 members of different developers. You have pushed your code, and it worked fine in the dev. And when someone pushed the same code, we have pushed all together into a same, like a same repo with the multiple branches in. Then it went well, and the dev, when it go to the QA or production, it completely broke. That is going to be at the operational level. So that time, the term introduced the Azure DevOps, where it's going to be a kind of a number of tools it integrated with, I mean to say boards, and as well as task groups and Azure environments, as well as process we have, and we have team monitoring and capacity planning, and as well as with the CICD pipelines, with the, like, I mean to say build and release pipelines. Now it's going to be ML pipelines. That terms it comes in, and where it saved like everyone to deliver application with a low error pronounce rate. That where you would be integrating everything into the CI. Once the CI qualifies the build, then it's going to be go quality gates, then it would be going into the build, so that whatever the package it has pushed into the continuous integration services, it's already built, and if it is validated, then only it would be going with the different types of stages or environment. That time you would be having like less scope of errors. That's where we would be using of Azure DevOps or Jenkins or GitHub Actions or Fabricator or BuildKite. There are a number of tools we have. Chef and Puppet we do have, and we do have Ansible configuration for management in those kind of stuff. And what you would be doing is like it's going to be sprinkling like things on what you have been developed. I mean to say you know how to build your infrastructure, and you know like how your application needs to behave. Then what this DevOps is going to do is like it's a sprinkling salt on, like I mean to say any curry you would be making up, it's sprinkling on the salt. It salt makes you like it gets more tastier, right? Irrespective of like what you are making, you made completely. But without salt, it can't be even eatable, right? The same way here, Azure DevOps coming into the picture, saying up you know the infrastructure, you know the application, how you want to work, then you would be connecting all together with the Azure DevOps. That's where these come into this like a continuous integration, continuous deployment, continuous testing, continuous delivery. What is continuous integration? I spoke like many times this, but I didn't explain you the definition. What is continuous integration? This continuous integration is nothing but we would be having like a number of branching and merging strategies. We have git branching and merging strategies. We would be following one of the approach to make our code, I mean to say uh, in general, like any if you take any application, there are n number of developers who would be developing in, right? So there are n number of code changes in general, it comes into the picture. There are n number of git flow approach or forking approach or branching, different types of branching strategy you would be following. You would be quickly messing up with the code changes because the n number of developers are changing at the same file, or maybe a different file on the same repo with the same branch. That where it comes with the branching strategies. In monolithic application or microservices based application, we would be going like a kind of a workflow method, then we would be doing. And that is going to be continuous integration where your code completely gathered and kept into a stored into somewhere. VCS, version control system. For this any version control system, if you use to store in general term, you would be most of the times using up like git. And earlier we would be calling like a TFS and GitLab. We have Bitbucket, we do have. And we have then number of tools, Fabricator we do have to just get the storage, and Tortoise SVN in the earlier days we have. There are a number of open source projects we have to just store it our code. That is what where it comes into the first stage. The next is going to be the deployment. If everything is versioned and everything is going to be maintained at the same repo, we would be deploying and doing the testing at the developer state, as well as doing up the testing up by the testers at the dev environment. There are in general, I'm saying of the dev, QA and stage, UAT, and as well as production main regions and DR main regions. This is the general application flow. In that where it's going to go with the deployment. Once the deployment is done with the associated environments, it's going to done with the continuous testing, I mean to say performance or integration tests, whatever the test cases you have been writing, except the unit test cases, that would be performed, and saying our application is able to live with the these URLs, and it's able to serve the user request. That's going to be done under the continuous testing. And along with that, they have like manual steps to do or automation that would be taking the precedence. This is going to be the deployment. This you would be verifying into a number of stages and a number of like environment criteria. Once this is done, we would be delivering. Delivery is nothing but we would be following like a number of scrum and agile policies, we process we have like a CMMI 5 or scrum or agile. Based on that, you would be having like a sprint configured. Based on that sprint configured, you would be having like a release branches that would be going into the live to the customers. That time what we would be doing is like whatever under the complete process of like CI, CD, CTA. This is going to be end stage where it's going to be delivered to the application, I mean to say stakeholders or clients. That process, complete process, it's articulating as a Azure DevOps, like a CI/CD approach. in general, what is CA? In general, like what I said is like, what is this Azure Dev Apps? It's going to be all about people, process, and products. People is nothing but the developers and testers and administrators who would be responsible for the application. The process is nothing but CMMI for 5 or Agile or Scrum or like no more like a waterfall model. Earlier they used to be in. These all articulate together and doing into a step-by-step process. We would be calling it as a like a complete process of delivering application. If you take any example as here, what we would be doing is like it's going to be a circle. I mean to say, it's going to get like a completely rotated in. It's going to be at the end ends with the continuous delivery. If you see here, what we would be doing is like we would be plan and track first. Then what we would be doing is like we would be developing whatever we have developed. We would be building and testing the application. Once the deployment is done, we would be once build and test is done, we would be deploying into the environment. And once that is done, the application we have to maintain, right? That is nothing but operations. And in the operations we would be doing like what are the changes, or if it's going to go with the patch cycles are managed like managed, or like you would be having like a patch update needs to be pushed as the customer has complained saying, "Oh, like this is not working, you have to fix it." In that you would be going with the hard fix to just fix that particular moment, and just would be that would be pushing over. And once that is done, in general, as I said, like Amazon application, if you take the Amazon or Flipkart, that is going to get with the like load variations, right? I mean to say like the sale days, it's going to be having like more load, and the like another days it's going to be having like a very less load as compared to that days. That where it's going to be monitoring and learning we would be having in. I mean to say how much CPU utilization or performance counters it has in. Based on that, we would be like scalability of like horizontal or vertical scaling we would be doing for our application. This is all the process it's involves with the Azure DevOps that we would be taking care. And what is Azure DevOps and what are the different types of features we have in general and the overview. If you take the Azure boards, where it's going to be going to nothing but in a collaboration where you would be having like a team associated. I mean to say the developers or testers or architects, that where we would be having into a complete team, that we would be splitting our work items based on like a number of ways. I mean to say sprints are like product backlog items we do have, and we have product increments. Based on the process what we would be following up, we would be having like a sprint analyzed. Few will go with the 15 days and few will go with the weekly sprints. That depends on the product and depends on the application, that the capacity planning and everything can be done. And where it's going to be burn down charts are created. Based on that burn down charts, we would be like tracking of the capacity of the lead, like each developer and the application progress. The next thing is like Azure pipelines, where it's going to be like next thing is Azure repos. As I said, like earlier, once you have tracked your work items, you have committed something for this 15 days to be done with the 5 developers. Then whatever the code you would be developing or modifying, you would be pushing into a central repository of version control system. That is nothing but Azure repos as inbuilt capability to just get it stored into the versions. That versions and each commit is going to get that done, and along with the PRs it's going to be meshed. There are a number of processes we would be following here. Once that is done, the next step is like we would be doing the CD, right? That CD where it comes to the Azure pipelines. Once that Azure pipelines came into the picture, it will connect with the like source control. I mean to say Azure repos or GitHub or Fabricator or SVN, whatever you would be having like VCS control in. It takes the code and it does the build and it does the testing of, and it does the code quality analysis and everything. What are the test plans and test suits, test cases and test plans. This is nothing but where you would be writing up like a QA and as well as unit test cases. It's been writing by the developer as well as by the testers, that can be run on the environment. We would be keeping under the Azure test plans, where it consists of test cases and test plans and test suits. The next thing is artifact. This artifact is nothing but once you have build, once you are done with the build, you would be generating an like one exe file or plugin or DLL or a gif file, right? That where you would be using into the next steps of the state, next steps of the deployment. That what we call it as a artifacts. And the next along with this we have like as I said, like all these Azure pipelines, CI/CD pipelines, it needs to be run on somewhere, right? There are Microsoft hosted agents and self-hosted agents. That way, you it's going to come into the picture, saying up like what are the application needs we would be having in that pipelines is going to be run on. And another advantage is like we have a like a huge market place in the Azure DevOps, that where you can have like a number of plugins available, so that you can pick and whatever the plugin you need, you can utilize it, so it can serve most of the requests. And the next thing is like environments, that is going to be like if you are going with the specific targets of AKS or like maybe a virtual machines that you would be configuring it. Based on that, it has like a policies in, and top of the policies you can policies and approval mechanism you can have in built in. That way you would be securing your application. If you done the mistakenly even like a trigger a release, it won't get it deployed until it gets approved. That is one of the another fact we would be having. And the next thing is like deployment groups and task groups as well as variable groups. And there are like a process, we have team configuration and service connections, as well as build artifact and retention strategy. There are a number of things we would be having in that we would be like a stage. If you see here, there is a button called like in general, as everyone knows, this is going to be like a simple board saying up like a ground and data, and it's going to get it supplied. Whatever the flag you would be supplying here, based on that it would be triggering up. If you see here, there are no light is triggering up for this like API, right? API dev, it's triggering into the API prod and web. Based on whatever the data we would be passing in, it can get it deployed into a different types of environments. Yeah, one is the items, as I said like earlier, it's going to be like work items. Like if you see here backlogs, where you would be having like a current iteration and future iterations, is nothing but the sprints, where you would be having like each user. If you see the backlog and capacity board and capacity, where it's going to be kind of state where you would be having like a feature or bug or epic or PBI or like change request are kind of there are a number of work items you can create. The same how it works is like as you know, many of using of the Jira, right? It's going to be a similar board items you can be get it, and you can sort it out by the users and sort it out by the state, and then you can have like individual work items and group by the team that can be monitored. And even like if you see here how the framework interpolability is going to get into the picture is like Azure DevOps boards is nothing but a Trilio boards, where you will be tracking up your works in. It's going to be the code. If you see here, code is going to be the Azure repos or GitHub or like Fabricator or any a number of tools. Build and test is going to be Jenkins and Azure pipelines. This is going to be vice versa. Once you're having wherever you have, it doesn't matter. It gets, if you have the code in the GitHub, it can interact with the Azure pipeline. Then it can, whatever the build it has succeeded in the Azure pipeline, it can interact back with the GitHub again, saying up the kind of status. Even with the, if you have like a Jenkins, you can integrate Jenkins with the Azure DevOps even. That where it's going to be get tracked into the same state. And as I said like earlier, you can use any language to write your code, like your code to get it deployed, and you can get to like have the complete state of architecture, and you can maintain for the secrets and all the secret variables and variables that can be keep track of. And the next one is like monitoring, that can be going with the application insight or log analytics or OMS, and along with that Sentinel you would be having in, or like if you are going with the any third provider, CLK, Elastic Logstash and Kibana and Grafana, we would be having like a number of tools that can be integrated along with this. If you see how the in general how it works with the Azure DevOps, if you see here architect articulated saying up, here is the software engineer, he would be saying up like he would be committing a web page called maybe a welcome.html, that where it welcomes you the guest, and it asks for the sign in that he has committed. Once it committed, it's going to be get it into the version control system, that what we call it as a Azure repos or GitHub. Once it has in, it's going to go with the code unit test cases. Once the unit test case is going to get done, then it's going to be the data test, and it's going to be getting that, like it's going to be There are a number of kind of applications we have here. We are seeing like a data science application. It trains the model and it integrates the sanity test, and it's once it is done, it's going to get it deployed to the AKS. If you see here, deployed to test, deployed to the prod, based on the button what you're clicking, or based on the light you would be having in, it would go in. And along with that, it has like version changes for the AML, and then it can directly, data scientists or like whoever would service model it has in, it can able to integrate, and it can source the request to the end users. Yeah, this is going to be a full CICD approach. I mean to say, if you see here, this is going to be one of the application EPAM, like ML EPAM. Here it has a master, and where it has like a conventional approach without pipelines. It's going to be having like master, and where you would be having like only the code. If you see here, it has like a complete test results, and along with the notebooks whatever you would be writing in, that can be pushed and maintained the code into. If you, what I mean to say is like, here if you see pipeline.sh, and as well as run build local.sh, cmd, whatever the test operating system you would be having, everything can be into a same model, so that nowhere you need to go in. Once you are done, it's done. Once you train the model and compare the MSMED, promote and registering, once you are done with that, you would be creating a scoring image. Once that scoring image, I mean to say the version of the image, once that is ready, you would be tagging in, you would be pushing into the any kind of image repository. I mean to say Azure Container Registry, or Artifact, or JFrog, or Nexus, or any another. Once it is done, what we would be doing is like, we would be checking the dependencies. Once the dependencies and everything is verified, and if it looks fine, then we would be creating an image. Once that is done, what we would be doing is like, we would be deploying, and we would be posting. Once the deployment is done, we would be posting a message saying, oh, application is got deployed. Then everyone get notified saying, this is the new version, it got updated. The same, if you see here, release pipeline, it's going to be a build pipeline. This all process, once the registry is done, it's going to be saying, with this particular release we have the already DLL has created, or plugins has created. Then we would be going with one of the environment, just create container instance from the like a container from the new image what we have pushed into the ACR or Nexus. Once that is done, we would be having like a salutation test from the UI to just get. Once everything is done, once this is done, QA, you would be having like a message posted into the Teams or Slack or anywhere. The same the process, it's going to goes with the application. Once you are done saying up, you're get into live. I mean to say, everyone can able to see you, your whatever the latest version. The developer or like infra team, as a CICD build and release engineer, you have like your application is ready, so that everyone can be happy now. With that complete process, we ends up with the Azure and Azure Dev Apps. Now, latest buzzword what we would be entering up in the latest days, I mean to say maybe 3 to 4 years, we are hearing containers, container with the Kubernetes. What is like a Kubernetes, and why we need Kubernetes? Where to run, and what are the kind of capabilities we have, and why we it's important for as a DevOps you need to get to know. It's like one of the orchestration tool provided. We have a number of, it's going to be drafted from the CNCF cloud native cloud foundation, and it can be run in anywhere. Once the image is ready, then it's going to get with the workload adoption, and as well as increase controller. Why it is needed is like, it works on the node like a cluster, private and public cluster. It has like a high availability, and it has like it can run on the independently with each other, irrespective of the complete hardware. It's going to run into a particular pod. That particular pod, it has going to be like a references, and as well as specs whatever you have defined, it's going to be done on that way. And one more thing is like, it has like a HPA available, high horizontal pod auto scaling we have. And what horizontal and vertical scaling can be supported. It's going to be a kind of pass provider we can get in. And the ingress controller you would be adding, and you would be having like this Kubernetes is going to be drafted as a open source, so you'll get the more support from there. And whatever the optimization or whatever the customization you would like to do, you can go with that. This Kubernetes having like how the orchestration is going looks like is like, if you see here, this is going to be the developers and admins. It's going to be like interacting with the master, I mean to say a controller or scheduler. and API of that. Once that is done, it's going to having like a node list where you would be running up like your applications by using up the Docker. You would be making an images and the commands what it needs to be built-in plugins that can be available. And it means to say that Docker file, as it's going to be one of the tool where you would be generating up the images. Like I meant to say, what are the steps you want to do, just you would be making that into a one file, and you would be running up that particular build, and you would be tagging that. Once the tag is done, then you would be pushing it to into our artifactory. Once there, then it can take the images from this, and it can run on the particular node and pay a particular pod with the deployment. And within the same pod or within the same node, replica set and replica controller and scale sets, there are a number of ways we do have in that. It's going to get our work pods is running. Each pod may be container contains is consists of a number of containers. In each container can be communication, and there are tons of application it's going to be getting. Once this is done, we have our application is pushed into the everywhere, then it's going to get served to the users. I mean to say the end users, or application users, or clients. This is like in general simpler architecture. If you see more of complicated, it has like there are a number of things. Here we have etcd and scheduler controller manager. We have in the API server, we have in the same master that can be communicated back to us. And each node, it has like a kubelet and kubeproxy where it's going to control with the complete network, and where it's going to run on our pods is nothing but container runtime. Whatever the like dependencies you need, that content pod itself, it has the content and complete dependencies. It's not going to mess up with any other pod. Thank you. It's time for questions. Thank you everyone for your patience and listening of this. Yeah, if you have any questions, we can take now. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello. Yes.
May I know about the if I am my background is a tester as like a tester, automation tester. Is that beneficial
Okay.
for the DevOps engineer fitting like?
Yeah, one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, to answer your question, like it's new to you and it's new to anyone who doesn't know anything. He would be getting started, right? The same way he would be getting started. There are no prerequisites for this training. As I said, like there are tons of tools we need to be utilizing in that. You would be, while we are going with the console approach, as well as with the CLI, and as I said, like few frameworks, like a language we would be using it, right? If you get started with that and doing of the development and doing of the deployment, you are good to go. There are no requirement of course, or there are no requirement of branch, or there is no specific requirement to any department. It can fit to anyone, as anyone can be served the like if you are like, as it's going to be new for everyone, right? So
Yeah.
if you learn, you'll get to know. That's it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, Akshay this side.
Hey
So
Akshay.
thank you so much for the great session. And I would just like to know, like, we'll be performing the lab along with this course. And second question would be, how long this course is going to take? Like, 4 weeks, 6 week, or how long?
Yeah, good question, Akshay. The first thing is like we would be doing only live sessions. We are not here to just go ahead with the theory, to
Mm-hmm,
not to do any perform on the live time. So we would be
mm-hmm,
doing complete live sessions. It's a kind of demo, so I don't want to get bored. So just saying up like this, is what we would be covering up. That's what we have covered in theory. Otherwise, we might be having like a working session. And the second thing is like it can take up to 6 weeks, four to
to
six.
six. Okay, and we'll be having this session every day or just for the weekend?
Every day we would be having it.
Oh, okay, perfect. Sounds good. Thank you.
What this is Pawan here. What and all you are going to teach in this session?
Hi Pawan, like we would be covering up like Azure, like the cloud provider, and Azure Dev Apps and GitHub, and along with that we would be covering up the Jenkins, and one more thing is like a Git CLI, along with the PowerShell, Terraform, Azure Biceps, ARM templates, and bit into the shell script. As I know here, like people, maybe few people knows of like a few of them. but we would be covering it like will like I don't want to get bored them. If they are, they can, like they don't need to join that particular session in, then we can continue for everyone. Like as I said, like someone earlier called out saying up he's new to this, right? So we would be covering up basics of most of them to just get
Okay.
what it will give you.
So see, sorry. So you are giving any projects and what is the lab? See, normally the labs are there in this cloud only, so we can go and just create a free account and do that. So that is the way we go, or you are giving any lab manuals, just like the things. Just I want to understand on that.
Yeah, one thing is like, well, your question is good question, even though like one thing what we would be doing is like we would be doing up like complete live sessions. You don't need to worry about the projects. While you get integrated with the different services, you'll get to know how the products will work. And the end of each like a topic, we would be having like a live project. I mean to say, each topic you can have like a project, and where I would be giving like a live examples where I have like a practical experience exposure, right? That I would be giving in. And the next thing is like lab you're talking of is like you would be going with like a free subscription based on your credit card. Then you would be ending up with like a 12 15,000 rupees for a month with a free, like they would be giving in, you would be practicing there. And one more thing is like on the lab, as I said, like you can frozen the environment in n number of ways. I would be like giving the like hints of saying up one way. You would be like the next thing is like you would be doing up into a different way. I mean to say, you can create a VMR virtual network into, let's take example, a small component storage account. You can create that into the AGCLI, AG PowerShell, Terraform, ARM templates, as well as Azure Biceps. Once you are done with this, you would be going like, if I say that I'm going to do with the like, let's take example as the ARM template, I'll ask you to go ahead with the creation of remaining ways. If you have any question, as I'm going to give you complete thing in the front, so you'll get to know how to get done that. If you have any issues, we would be covering that in, then we would be continuing over
Uh,
the next class.
See, yeah, yeah, I got it. See, I am the industry, I have the industry exposure of 17 years, but
Okay.
unfortunately, the project is called off, and I'm from the management team, not from the technical team. Is this course is going to help me anywhere?
Yeah, for sure. Basically, how it works is like, as you said, like you are from the management perspective, where it comes into the most of PMI, CMMP certificate you might be having in PMP. And where it helps you is like while you would be planning the budgeting, it helps you there saying up, if the developer or someone says up, this what we would be needing in, and this is what we would be creating in, then you can ask them saying up, why you need that. This way it works, and that way you can even eliminate the capital expenditure. Why you have to go with that approach, and you can suggest, and you can, like if you have a basic exposure, you can have an argument with them. If you are doing, they are doing it like, even though they have a technical architect, on top of the technical architect, you would be in, right? That time you can have like the time period, like how in general how many days it takes in general, if you get to know, that would help you to manage and perform better in the top level of management, saying up into the proper estimates and along with the proper budgeting in. I hope it helps you, it answers your question. If you have any,
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah, it is good. Thank you. So, thank you. So, okay, I'll connect back with you if required some other doubts. Thank you on that.
sure, always welcome, sir. Anyone has
Sai,
any
like,
other
Hi,
questions?
Sai.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, Sai,
Lakshmi
I
here.
just have one question. Ask it
One by
now.
one, please.
Yeah,
Yeah, no problem. Continue.
do we require any scripting knowledge to work on DevOps?
uh, if you have, that's good to go. If you are not, then I would be like giving you the basics, right? That would help you to get started in.
So does it mean like that DevOps is more into development or administration? So yeah,
See,
because like
one thing
I'm
is like,
I'm from administration background. Yeah.
Totally. Basically, how it works, as you spoke more, like well, like the industry will get with the new names every time. I mean to say, platform engineering or intel engineering, and as well as with the administration, as well as DevOps and SREs. But the fact is that whenever it needs, what it needs, it would be performing on that particular role, right? That's where the DevOps comes into the more picture. So you would be needing scripting for sure, and that is not a like a rocket science, rocketry science. Even you'll get to know quickly. You won't be like playing over the loops and the variables, I mean to say data types. Nothing more you need to worry about. If you know the
Good,
requirement, you are good to go. It's not about the programming. You'll get hints in the Google even.
good. Thank you, sir.
Hi Sai, Lakshmi here.
Hi Lakshmi.
Hi. So actually, I'm basically a .NET developer.
Yes, please.
Okay, and I have 12 years of experience. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I just wanted to switch my technology to the cloud. Because of that reason, as mine is Microsoft background, I have chosen the cloud, especially with Azure is the best option for switching off to this one. So now my requirement is after this course, can I able to complete AZ 900 and 204 or
203.
400
Azure
in next 2
204 is
years?
going to be for like developers. Azure 203 is going
Developer
to be
role,
going to
yeah.
be 900 is going
Yes,
to be
yes,
for
that's
basics. One thing I
yes,
can
yes, that's
tell
what.
you is, Lakshmi, as you know well,
Mm-hmm.
like you might be using of a number of components. You might be head of web apps or like ACRs or AKS. You might be using in storage accounts, event hubs, and event namespaces, right? That where it's going to be get into more is like, as you have already developed know the programming in, so you'll get quickly
Mm.
cleared even to that for.
Yes, true, true. I understand. What is my question is, will I able to complete AZ 400 certification after this course?
400 certainly not, because
Mm-hmm.
400 is going to be like for DevOps professional expert level.
Exactly.
So yeah, without
So are you
having
going
like any
to complete?
practical exposure, how you can't be able to for sure,
Mhm. Okay.
because it's
What
going
about
to be more
204?
on expert level. Lakshmi, one thing is like we would be going in the six months. If you can be get like a complete professional at 2 months to be get expert, then it doesn't mean, right? Because
True, true,
people are spending years to get the certification done. By 6 weeks, if you can, then there is no meaning for them, right? You can't for sure.
true.
I don't
Yeah.
want to lie you. That's the reason I'm saying you the fact.
Yes, yes, sir. Maximum, I mean, I could see some content are not covered over here in the curriculum which you are going to share in the demo. I understand that. But the thing is, as per the Azure DevOps, it's clean and good. I understand that. The content which you have shared right away on the demo, that's good.
Hmm.
But my question is, I wish to complete these certifications which is related to AZ 900 and AZ 400. So 400, I can't do it directly. Why?
No, no,
Because
no, no,
without
no.
going to 104 or
I understand
204.
your requirement, Lakshmi. I understand your concern basically, Lakshmi.
Mm,
Yeah, there are two things
mm,
here you're speaking of. One is AG
mhm.
900. AG 900 is the one thing where
Very
it
basic level.
completely focus on the cloud provider. AG
Mhm,
400, where it's going to be having like a mixed capabilities of a cloud provider experience along with the DevOps experience. So while we would be doing up, you would be needing like expert level to clear up AG 400. But as you said, like AG 900 is going to be completely into the Azure level fundamentals.
yes,
And one more thing you can complete is like Azure 204, where you will have like application capabilities, and along with the Azure capabilities you have, so that, and as well as you have a DevOps capabilities that will help you to clear up even like a 203 and 204 AG 900, but you can't clear it up 400 for sure.
Okay, Sai, sounds good. And received the information. And on my another question is, which is related to this orchestration. That means Kubernetes or Docker would be covered any chance by any chance
Yeah, we would be covering it.
in extended level or is in a high level, in a detailed manner
Uh,
or what? How could
one
it be?
thing, one thing is like as I said, like we have like 4 to 6 week of coverage, right? If we
Mhm,
can't, we would
mhm,
be extending. If you have an availability, we can get into the extended level. Otherwise, you would be having
mhm,
like a high level. Whatever you need, we can go ahead. And the availability of time. The another constraint
mhm.
for everyone is like time, right? Here, I know many of them are working for sure.
Yeah, yeah, true. Totally agree. And next thing is, will you be able to give the real-time scenarios what we are facing nowadays in the real-time projects, which could be, say, maybe not only in Azure DevOps, will it be Docker or will it be on Kubernetes cluster? Will you able to share anything on your thing? You said you have some years of experience, right?
Yeah, we would be covering Lakshmi.
So,
One
if
thing is like
possible.
no, yeah, yeah, yeah. I would be covering up like one thing I want
Mhm,
to clearly tell everyone is like here we are not here to explain a theory of like coming here saying oh we are done with the 2 pages of theory, we are good to go. I am not going to give you a like a single line of theory. We would be going complete live demonstrations, and at the end of
mhm,
we would be having a lab scene, and I would be telling you if you go with any of the resource how in real time what kind of issues you would be facing in. If you face that kind of issues, what you would need to do, how you would be sorting that. That is what our complete course is going to be in. There are no theoretical, I'm saying whatever it needed it needs to be in. There are no document or single written have given to you for sure. If you need the handouts of theory, that I can provide you, but in the
mhm,
complete course there are no contents will be given on the class. I
mhm.
don't want to waste anyone's time. You can read it on Google even, right? If I can, I came here for to like give you like a 10 pages of notes, that won't help anyone for sure. You can go
Yes,
ahead
yes.
with Google.
Basically, this is not similar to the traditional languages, which is similar to Java, .NET, Python,
No,
whatever things. This is somewhat
no.
different than the these things. That's the reason I'm just asking you these meaning questions
Yeah,
before
yeah,
take
yeah.
it up.
One thing is like Lakshmi, if you, as I said, like the .NET, you don't need to learn the entity framework here. You don't need to worry about the SQL database here, or MongoDB, or Cosmos DB, or Azure Table,
Yeah, yeah.
or you don't need to go with the singleton framework here, or Automapper. You don't need to write a business logics here, Lakshmi. You,
True,
it
true.
all about
Yeah,
the
yeah.
fact is that you would be having like an encapsulation layer, that you would be encapsulating our application capabilities and cloud provider capabilities. You would be going to be a bridge between them, nothing else.
Okay, sounds good.
Anyone has any other questions? We are running.
Hey, hi, Sai. This side Krishna. Hello.
Yes, please. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, yeah. If I complete this course, means that the is this beneficial for the Azure admin also?
Yeah, Azure admin also covers up.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, one thing I want to clarify everyone is like here the traditional things are gone, guys. I mean to say like you are not no more admin, you are no more like like a developer for a cloud provider even. You need to have like both in your hands, because when you'll get what kind of requirement no one knows. That's the reason I would be having like a broader curriculum for us, and that would be completed. So it will all of the live sessions I said, like there are no documentation given.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Even though you are a,
So
like
sorry to interrupt
Krishna,
on
you
this.
are a admin,
I,
sometimes you get asked to the write a code. That time you'll get like a huge impact. That's the reason if you know how to get started even, it won't hurt you much. If you go with the complete administrative part, like saying like you want to go with the managing of resources or patching or monitoring of it, if sometime you said like you are bored with that and if you want to get explore your career, then you have to get started again in a different direction. If you have everything in, when you have some time, you'll get to know. Anyone has any
Yeah,
question?
last question. Last question from my side. Pavan here again. See, when we are
Yes, Pawan.
moving from 17 years exposure in the management industry, and my previous experience is Oracle DBA. From there, I'm
Okay.
just want to shift to Azure end. So, what are the prerequisites? I know that there is no prerequisite as such, but for this profile, I cannot go as a 1 year guy, a 2 year guy in the industry. I can
Yeah.
say
Pawan.
I'm new to this. So,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
is that
Oracle DBA
they
or
are
like
looking the industry
Pawan, do
wise?
you have experience in Oracle apps even?
No, I don't. I
Oracle
have
apps or what
exposure
you
in
are
1 year
doing?
in apps.
Okay.
I'm a pure core DBA, not apps DBA.
Okay. Do you work with
And
any kind of big data
and
tools? Did you work with any kind of big data tools?
no, no, I not work with any big data. My last project, I was a project manager for Azure one migration project.
Okay.
I have worked for the last project in
Okay.
CMM. So, which is from on-premises to Azure. There are different.
Okay.
They have taken a landing zone and taking what are the prerequisites, and after that, they are not using any third-party tool, Carbonate Migrate or something. Just they're using the Azure Migrate only, and they move the data source to on-premises. So
On premises
see,
to the cloud. Okay.
on premises to the cloud, sorry, yeah, on premises to the cloud. So what I want to understand, if we want to go this course, see, this project is gone out, and we are in the bench, and we may move to other organization or some time. So what I'm looking, what are the prerequisites when I'm going to showcase to the next new company as a Azure DevOps engineer or Azure DevOps project manager? That is my question.
Yeah, one question is like, Pawan, like in your case, as compared to others, in your case, it's a different. And I'll say that your role is going to be a mixed. As it's you're a experienced guy, you would be having like a mixed capabilities where your skill set can fit into. One is like AIML is your the one thing I can say is like if you can go ahead as you know well into the DBA, you know like how the queries can be getting done and what's going to be AML is going to do with the PySpark. It helps you where you would be having like a data sets and data models to be created in. And the next thing, as it's going to be even with the big data, if you go, they would be asking about the repos and everything. As you have worked with the already DBA, you need to get strained into few topics saying up like how the code gets committed and how the collaboration is going to happen, what kind of strategies as industry is using up, and what are the tools to use to provision. I mean to say uh, your skill set fits into a number of places. So for you to get prerequisites is like if you, as you have already like a complete awareness of DBA, if you can get bit started into the PySpark, one of the tool from Python, are like Pi notebooks. In Azure, we have one thing called Pi notebooks, Python notebooks. And one more thing we have is like Azure Data Factory. If you can focus on that, it will help you a lot in the what you have like much experience. And along with that, you know well like if you have they have SQL like Oracle DBA on premises, you'll get to know how to get it migrated and what are the kind of logins you would be having in credentials, what are the kind of DAC pack methods, I mean to say backup and restore policies they have in. You would be having like most exposure there. Your profile fits into a number of places, Pawan.
What is AML? Sorry, I missed that. What is AML? Azure Machine Language Learning? Is that?
Yeah, yeah, Azure like artificial intelligence and machine learning, where it's going to integrate with the a number of tools. That where I'm saying up is like Python notebooks, Py notebooks.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Python notebooks is the one of the trending for you. It will help you much. And the one is another one is ADF and Synapse. If you can
Yeah,
like
thanks.
just explore on these two topics, just get to see. If you have any doubts, just reach out to me, please.
Sure. So could you please ping your number in the chat box or to this, and so I can reach out to you post to this call,
Uh, Institute will
or
help
to
you
the
with that.
or reach to the organizer institute. It is
Yeah,
Sai
yeah,
Institute. No, what is that?
organization
This
will
institute.
help you with that. Organization will help you to
Yeah,
reach.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Sai, final question. What would be the
Hi,
class
sir.
timings for this one?
Sorry.
What would be the class timings?
Uh, Basically, we are planned for 7 to 8. Otherwise, we would like we are planning for 7 to 8 evening. If people are
Mm-hmm.
comfortable, like as I see, like there are like a number of regions people are here. If they want to, most people would like to go with the morning session. I am happy to take care between anytime post 8 to 11.
Mm-hmm. 8 to 11.
Yeah, yeah.
Sai, it is better
What
because
about 9 to 10 or 10 to 11 in the morning time
That
if
works well.
everything goes well?
Yeah, that works well. Like we'll get like institute will get interact with you more based on the people's interest.
Mm-hmm.
We would be like a
Mm-hmm.
scheduling one along, as we are
Yeah,
not
yeah.
here, right? Lakshmi, two members, so we would be needing a opening slot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree.
Also, Sai, just one question. Will be working on Databricks as well or no?
ADF Databricks, like I have created few pipelines on the Databricks, but not
Hmm.
much. Completely on.
Yeah, usually for the creation of pipeline, we use Databricks. So,
Yeah,
because
workspaces, workspace
I want to have
creations, and
hands-on
RBAC
experience with the
and
Databricks as well. So that's the reason I'm asking that question.
yeah, yeah, we would be covering Databricks and Data Factory even, Akshay.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
But the fact is that I won't be creating any model or data set in, but I would be
Hmm.
saying up this is a workspace how you would be integrating and RPACs and PAT token. With this PAT token, the data factory or like a Databricks workspace can be opened up. Based on that, whatever the Python code you would like to know, write it down there. You can do that.
Oh, okay.
Sai, excuse me, how ADF is related to Azure DevOps? That is data analytics, right?
Yeah, here we are not talking about like we would be doing a like that's one question, actually good question you brought in. It's not about a idea of like a data factory you would be doing, or like analytics you would be doing, or application migration you would be doing. This is all about the DevOps course. It's you would be assigning with the n number of tasks. Which project you would be assigning, no one knows. If the organization recruited for data factory, the data factory application, you need to develop for data factory application, I mean to say ADF creation, and along with the ADLs, Azure data lakes, along with the blob containers you would be creating with, or like your organization may be going with the Postgres, you need to get Postgres in, or if you want they want to go with the Cosmos DB, whatever the architect has defined in the organization from the perspective of infra and as well as application, right? You would be instructed to go with that. That's the reason I would be covering like most of the most frequently used topics, so that you won't get hurt when you hear that name. We are
And
not
those
going
things
to.
use the CI pipelines, uh, YAML pipelines. Are we using in ADF? It's different, right?
Yeah. No, 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 no. It's all about like on the standpoint of infrastructure perspective. We would be talking of. We are not creating any data model or data set. Like in general, if you take the example as you at ADF, you might be heard of integration runtimes, right? That time you would be having like RBACs needs to be created, and as well as AD integration is done, right? That I would be talking of, not into the data sets or like what are the runs, like how the history of the runs it works. But we don't be going in deeper of like actions or loops what we would be doing on the data factory.
Okay, got it.
See, I mean to say like sometime you would be going with the web apps, and sometimes you would be going with the AKS. Sometimes in your organization may not be using a single VM. That time, if I teach you a VM not with the containers, ACA or like Azure Container Apps or Azure Container Instances or like AKS or Docker, I didn't teach you. Like we didn't discuss. It's not about teaching discussion. We didn't had a discussion. You'd be getting shocked saying, "Oh, someone didn't said he is an idiot guy, right?" I don't want to call me that. That's the reason I would be touching there. If you have any follow-up question, please go ahead, please.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hi, sir.
Thank you.
Hi, sir. Actually, I'm from the ETL testing background, so may I know how it could be helping for me, like Azure DevOps?
See, if wherever you are, if you want to move your career towards this direction, it will help you out. Like I mean to say, as here someone previously asked me ETL tool of like a ADF, how it really relates. It's a good question, because like as you are a ETL tester, if you want to go ahead with the like ETL configuration, you know how to test the application. If you know how to get it deployed, it will help the application developers to get you creation of the infrastructure, right? Even it help you if you go with the ADF, that ETL, Azure Data Factory Workspace or Synapse. They are going to be a kind of drag and drop tools we have available in. If you get mastered in, you can integrate that with the Power BI or with the SSRS, as you have said, like ETL, right? What kind of tool you
Yeah.
are using, SSRS or SSIS or SSE?
I'm using SSIR.
SSIR, right? Reporting server,
Yeah, yeah.
well. Then you would be embedding the links, right? The same you can integrate with the Power BI. The same way,
Oh,
ETL, ADF will help you to have a model there. From there, you can get your Power BI reports even generated. That way, it help you in.
okay, okay, fine, fine.
I hope you
And
would
then,
be using a impersonate user
and then,
true in every many of the reports, right? That would
yeah,
solve
yeah. And
even.
then, are you going to teach like Docker and Kubernetes in depth? Because I have some kind of requirements here based on the only the Docker and Kubernetes. How you are going to do?
Yeah, one thing is like we would be doing up in a generic manner, but not into, if I go into deeper dive for your related, like we would be missing another components there. So I don't want to get the hut there. That's the reason we would be covering most of the part into a generic manner.
Okay, okay, fine, fine. Okay, okay, thanks.
Any another question we do? Do we have any other questions, or can we wrap this?
Sai, final question. Lakshmi this side. Can I able to go with 2 years of experience with this one after this course?
Yeah, I don't
Will
want
it
to
be
say this
helpful?
to you, Lakshmi. At the end, I
Mhm.
can ask you the same question. How much you can rate yourself by having this complete experience? You'll get to you will yourself you'll get me an answer. Don't
Okay.
worry about that. Don't worry about that. You'll get me an answer for sure. I don't want to answer your question now. You'll get me an answer at the end of the course.
Okay. Okay. From how long you are teaching this? I mean, teaching field?
This is going to be 4 to 6 weeks. Uh, Maybe sometime it may extend for a week most.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, if we don't have any questions, we can wrap. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Bye bye.